Hey, this is John with FixYourDirtBike.com, and this is why I use rubber grease when I install new tubes and tires. Before I start this video, I want to make perfectly clear that you do not need rubber grease when you install tubes and tires. Soapy water works just fine, and I use it all the time for project bikes. This is simply personal preference. I started using rubber grease because when I was a kid, I saw it used on rubber hoses and seals in classic cars, so I thought, why not use it on my dirt bike? As it turned out, I was a few decades late to this idea, as rubber grease has been used in motorcycles for a very long time. It has many applications when it comes to dirt bikes, so I'm going to save that for its own video. This video will focus on the benefits of using rubber grease on the tubes and tires on your dirt bike. Rubber grease protects rubber and rubber on metal contact. This means your tube is protected from friction wear on all sides. Rubber grease is stable up to 230 degrees Fahrenheit with strong mechanical stability, so it won't break down when your tire heats up. It's also a vegetable-based grease, so it's suitable for both synthetic and natural rubber tubes. This is one of the reasons I only run natural rubber tubes, but I go into that in a different video. Rubber grease is water resistant to the point that pressurized water is required to remove it, making it a great waterproofing solution both inside and outside the rim. I apply a thin layer to my tubes as I install them to get a good layer between the rim, tube, and tire. When your tube is inflated, it seals tight against the rim and tire. Here is a tube inflated to 5 psi, and you can see it expands much larger than the tire. So when you seat the bead at 30 psi, that thin layer of grease tries to find a way out, filling any gaps and cracks along the way. Here is an example of white lithium grease escaping through the valve stem hole after a tube alignment. I also apply a little extra to the outside of the valve stem and rim lock hole just in case. I like to waterproof my tires because I ride trails and never know what I'll be riding through. And even though aluminum can't rust, it can still corrode. Here's an example of what happens when water sits in your rim. These spoke bolts have corroded and seized to the rim. Even after soaking them in PB Blaster, these bolts will not budge. This means I can never true this rim. If it gets out of true, all I can do is replace it, and rims are not cheap. And even if water gets into my rim, rubber grease is an excellent corrosion inhibitor, adding another layer of protection. Rubber conditioning has two forms, motion and lubrication, and without conditioning, rubber will dry out, harden, crack, and even break. Unfortunately, my good bike sits most of the year. When I go riding, it's usually on a project bike, so I don't take my nice bike out as much as I'd like. Rubber grease helps keep the tube and tire conditioned and helps mitigate dry rot when my bike sits for long periods of time. But applying rubber grease to the inside of a tire will only go so far. Literally. As you can see here, the inside of a tire has a small layer of rubber before the fiber layer. While grease will condition this inside layer, it will most likely never permeate to the outer layer, so other measures need to be taken to avoid dry rot of the tire. Rubber grease does make installing tires easy, but it's very messy if you don't take your time. And if you're in a rush to change your tube or tire, you probably didn't need it to begin with. The main reason I use rubber grease is to save myself time and money in the long run. It might take me an extra 20 minutes to install a new tube or tire, but when they are protected from wear and dry rot, I can run them for years. And after those years, when I do need to change my tire or service my rim, I can perform maintenance on it without having to fight seized parts because it was waterproofed. A quick side note, lubrication on the inside of your tire will not make your tire slip on the rim. The only reason your tire will slip on the rim is a loose or misaligned rim lock. So do you need rubber grease? Absolutely not. Rubber grease is not a necessity, but an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. You definitely don't need it if you ride motocross or you change your tires on a regular basis. However, I would recommend using rubber grease to anyone that doesn't need to change their tires often, rides in wet conditions, or just doesn't get out much. If you do want to try it for yourself, you can get some through the link in the description. If you have any questions or tips of your own, please leave them in the comments. Thanks for watching, and make sure to like and subscribe.